Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace if you're new here, and we are here for my labor and delivery story. So first let's meet Lila. If you don't follow me on Instagram, then you have missed out on some delicious newborn content, but here she is. She's currently eating, clearly. And here she is. Her name is Lila Jane. She's almost 5 weeks, well, she is 5 weeks old. And she's just a precious little pumpkin in her little Burt's Bees outfit. Yeah. Yeah. She's already grown so much. It's crazy how fast they grow. I took a month off as a little maternity leave, recovery time. I had some baby blues and postpartum depression really bad, which I will cover in another video, but I just wanted to do my labor and delivery story today and then get on with some vlogs. I actually have a vlog already filmed, but I didn't want to post it without doing this first because then it's like you missed out on a whole chunk. But we'll just get right into it. I already filmed the labor and delivery story. I had to wait for Lila to take a nap to film that. Now she just took a nap so I could show you her because when babies need to nap, it's not pretty. So just keep watching if you want to hear my positive labor and delivery story, and follow me on Instagram because I've been posting a lot more since I'm home hanging with Lila all day. And if you don't follow me, then you would have missed out on like her birth picture and all of that stuff. So make sure you go follow me and check it out. And thanks for meeting Lila, and keep watching if you want to hear my labor and delivery story. Alright, so let's get into the actual labor and delivery story. I had an elective induction at 39 weeks. I chose that. My doctor didn't care either way. But personally, I wanted to have an elective induction at 39 weeks because, first of all, I was extremely sick my entire pregnancy. In the last few weeks of my pregnancy, I was throwing up again and just very sick. And I just had done, I hate to say research because when people are like, I did my own research, they read like a Facebook article, but I did look into inductions and stuff, and I really felt in my heart, in my intuition, that I was not going to go into labor naturally, and that obviously if you don't go into labor naturally, eventually you do have to be induced. Both of my sisters never went into labor naturally. I don't think my mom ever went into labor naturally, so I just kind of knew it wasn't going to happen for me. So I really wanted to be induced at 39 weeks, and I was 39 weeks and 1 day when I went in. So basically we went into the hospital on a Wednesday night, and they inserted a Foley balloon, which basically one part of the balloon goes above your cervix and one goes below, and they slowly inflate it to help you dilate, and they do that at nighttime. So they put that in. That wasn't painful at all, but I personally found the cervical checks to be extremely painful. I had a few throughout my pregnancy because I had to go to the hospital a few times for various things like kidney stones and like random things. And they had to do a cervical check at those times, and I find them to be extremely painful. And I don't know if it's the way the baby was positioned because Lila was extremely low. So basically what the doctor said is they had to go like behind her head, and I'm not sure of the anatomy of that, but I found the cervical check they did before the Foley balloon to be the worst part. I was like crying, like it really did hurt. They were being gentle and everything. I think it's just me. But once they put the balloon in, that didn't hurt at all. And then after that, it was like 6 o'clock. So Jesse and I got dinner and we just hung out in our hospital room. And we just kind of chilled. They gave me some medicine to help me sleep, which I really didn't sleep that night because the balloon, once it starts like inflating and they're dilating you, I found that to be very painful. Like I was having back labor. So eventually a nurse came in and lowered it a little bit because I guess they can take some fluid out, which makes it not as strong. And she did that, and once she did that, I felt a lot better and I was able to sleep. I maybe slept from like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And at 5 a.m. they took it out, and I was already 3 centimeters, which was great. So after that, we moved into the labor and delivery room because I was in just like a postpartum room overnight. We moved into a labor and delivery room, and that was a full day that we were in there, that I wasn't pushing or in labor or anything. So The one thing about elective inductions, or maybe inductions in general, is that it's a very long process and you have to be patient. And I knew I would be there for a while, but I was like, I had no idea what to do with myself. I didn't feel like watching TV. You know, every TikTok I had seen, there was nothing left for me on the internet to do. So I was literally like, la tita, waiting, waiting, waiting. I don't know what to do with myself. But so basically they just wait for your labor to start progressing. I had a yoga ball. I was walking around. I had Pitocin, which I was having contractions and stuff, but I didn't find extremely painful. And that was from like 7 a.m. until around like 4 p.m. I was just walking around, doing the yoga ball, doing different positions, really trying to get myself to dilate and go into labor. Around 4 p.m., my doctor was like, well, I was still only like 3 centimeters, maybe 4. They wanted to break my water, which I was all for because I really wanted to progress the labor. So I got an epidural first because my doctor was like, if you think the cervical checks are painful, like this is going to be worse than that. So if you want an epidural, I would suggest doing it before. And I was like, sounds good. So I got the epidural. If you're scared of getting an epidural, don't be, because it literally didn't hurt at all. Like at all. And the doctor was like, oh, this is going to feel like this and this is going to feel like this. But I really didn't feel anything. It didn't hurt. And then once I had it in, I was smooth sailing. I was like, damn, I should have gotten this earlier. It would have made my day go by much faster, because you instantly feel relief from any contractions or pain or anything that you're having. So the anesthesiologist put the epidural in, and then I was pretty much chilling just for like 40 minutes or so. And then my OB came in and broke my water, which when they break your water and you have the epidural, you can't feel it. You just feel like fluid coming out of you. And it's like a crazy amount of fluid. I guess I just never thought about how much you're carrying around with you when you're pregnant, but there was so much fluid. So anyways, she broke my water and everything went fine. And then after that, she's like, okay, well, I'll come check you like later, because now that we broke your water, like you're going to dilate and stuff, but it's going to still take time. So I was like, okay. And then from then on, I took a nap. I took a few naps from about, maybe that was 5 to like 10. And then around 10 o'clock, she checked me again, and I was like 6 centimeters. So she was really happy with that, because once you hit 6, they say that from 6 to 10 centimeters progresses very quickly. So she was pleased with that. And that was either around 10 or 12 a.m. No, it was definitely 10. And after that, she's like, okay, well, try to get some rest, because you're going to be pushing, you know, in the next few hours, because once they break your water, you have to deliver within 24 hours. So, like, you're going to be doing something soon. My nurses were all so amazing, like the nicest staff ever. I have nothing but amazing things to also say about my doctor, but I'll say that at the end. So anyways, 10 or 12 o'clock, I couldn't sleep. I think it was probably the anxiety of like what's coming, because I physically felt fine, but then the nausea hit. I threw up my entire pregnancy, so throwing up to me is literally like going to the bathroom. Like, it doesn't faze me. But I kept having to get the nurse to like bring me a throw up bag, or Jesse to bring me a throw up bag, or do whatever, because you can't like move. So I was like throwing up off the side of the bed, and that sucked because I was very nauseous. I hadn't eaten all day, but I wasn't hungry at all. And every time I drank water, it just came right back. So that was uncomfortable. So I couldn't really sleep. And I like dozed off and then woke back up, whatever. And then around like 1:30, I really started feeling contractions. And all day, my contractions were about 2 minutes apart. They weren't painful at the beginning. And then once I had the epidural, I obviously couldn't feel them. But they were about 2 minutes apart. So around 1:30, they were really consistent. And although I couldn't feel them, like I could feel my stomach tightening. And then around 2:30 is when the pressure kicked in. So what a contraction feels like when you have an epidural is just like your stomach's tightening. It doesn't feel like anything, but your stomach is really tight and you have like rectal pressure like no other. It feels like you have to go to the bathroom. And I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom in this bed, because that's like what it felt like exactly. Like you have to go to the bathroom right now. So that's what it felt like for about, an hour. I didn't want to call the nurse in because I knew I wasn't like the baby wasn't coming out. So I really wanted to just try to hold off and like do it on my own without people in the room. Obviously Jessie was in the room, but so I was just having contractions. You know, I was laying on my side because the whole night they had the peanut ball in between my legs and they would rotate me, so it helped me dilate. This hospital was so amazing with trying to get you to progress in your labor. I know some hospitals kind of like give you the epidural and they're like, all right, see you in 12 hours, and they don't help you do anything. And a big part of labor is you have to move around and, you know, use the peanut ball or a yoga ball to help your body dilate and move the baby down. For me, Lila was already so low the entire pregnancy, I didn't have to worry about that. The only thing I had to do was dilate. So yeah, the peanut ball, can't recommend enough. Check, see if your hospital has a peanut ball. If not, like order one on Amazon because they really are amazing. And Chelsea, my friend, you've probably met her if you've watched my videos. She's a labor and delivery nurse and she says nothing but amazing things about peanut balls as well. So definitely look into those if you are going into labor soon. Or around 3:30 a.m. I was like, okay, the nurse, like, you have to check me because I am feeling like so much pressure. It's crazy. So at 3:30 she checked me and I was 10 centimeters and she said she could feel Lila's ear, like her ear was like pressing through my cervix. It's like, oh, interesting. So she was like, all right, it's time to push. So at that point, it was 2 nurses in my room and Jessie. So one nurse was holding one leg, Jessie was holding my other leg, and we were just pushing. And they, you know, told me what to do. So wait till a contraction comes and then press, and I push, not press, for 10 seconds, take a breath, push for 10 seconds, take a breath, push for 10 seconds, and then wait till the next contraction. So I did that with the nurse and Jessie for about an hour. And then my doctor came in the room, 4:30 or so, and we pushed with my doctor from 4:30 until when Lila was born, which was at 5:46 a.m. So I did push for about 2 to 3 hours, which is pretty long. I mean, it felt pretty long. Once we were kind of nearing the 2 hours, 30 minutes mark, 2.5 hours. Like, I can't speak because I haven't filmed a video in so long. Once we reached the 2.5 hour mark, my doctor was like, you don't want to push for 3 hours, trust me. So like, she really taught me how to push to where it needed to go because I felt like I was pushing, but it was all like in my face and it wasn't going down. So she was like, push downwards, push. She was just like trying to teach me how to do it. And what I didn't realize, and I guess I never thought of it, was how hard you have to push to get the baby out. It's like you are using every ounce of energy in your body to push that baby out. It was just so insane to me because I just didn't think of it. Honestly, my whole pregnancy, I never thought like about labor. I was never, oh, I'm so scared to go into labor, oh, I'm so scared to push or have a C-section or do whatever. I just didn't think about it because it had to happen. So why was I going to sit there and worry about something that was inevitable and had to happen? So I truly didn't think about it until I was there. And then once I was pushing, I was like, holy crap, I have to push this 8-pound baby out of my vagina. And I did. But we pushed, and then once I guess we reached some milestone is when they, you know, turned the lights on and like put my legs on the stirrups, and then other people came into the room. So then there was like a pediatrics nurse and some other people. I don't know who the other people were, but a whole bunch of nurses were in the room, and my doctor and Jessie. So once the baby was like, I keep saying the baby, but now you all know her name, Lila. She was descended enough where I could feel the ring of fire. That was painful. The rest of the pushing I wouldn't say was painful, but it's a lot of pressure and like burning. But the ring of fire, that freaking hurt because my epidural turned off at 2:30 and they were like, we're not going to turn it back on because you need to be able to feel what you're doing to push. So by the time I had reached that point, the epidural had completely worn off. Like my legs, I could move, I felt everything. So that ring of fire, that's truly what it feels like, just burning, 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 whether you're pushing or not, burning. Then the contractions they're like really close together. They're on top of each other. So I was just pushing, take like a little break, push again, take a little break. And then they're like, oh, we can see your head. I reached down and I felt her head, and it really helped me push more because I like knew what I was doing. I'm like, there she is. She's right there. She's going to be out any second. So then the doctor told Jessie, like, you got to back up because her shoulder is like stuck. I guess it was kind of like wedged under my pelvic bone. So the nurse had to sort of step in. So then I pushed and her head was out. And then 2 nurses grabbed my legs and like rammed them back. And the other nurse sort of like pushed on my stomach to get Lila's shoulder out from under my pelvic bone. None of this hurt because you're so overwhelmed with what's going on. And then she was born at 5:46 a.m. and it was great. She had, no complications. She was a little blue. Obviously, like a lot of babies are blue, but she was a little bit more blue because I guess she was stuck in there for a while. And we did skin to skin right away. I didn't really have like a birth plan on things I wanted to happen after birth. I'm very go with the flow. And I was just like, whatever the doctors and nurses normally do is fine by me. So we did skin to skin right away, which was great. And they did all of her checks and all the other things they have to do. And I had a 3rd degree tear, but the doctor says it was more like in between 2nd and 3rd, like it wasn't an awful 3rd degree tear. So honestly, pushing and the ring of fire really hurt, but the post-labor contractions and getting the placenta out and being stitched up and then pressing on your stomach hurt not more, but kind of a little bit more. So after you deliver the baby, you obviously have to deliver the placenta, which happened pretty quick within like 15 minutes. And my doctor was stitching me up and that hurt. She gave me lidocaine and then I didn't feel it. But at first I felt it because the epidural had worn off, and then she gave me the lidocaine. Stitched me up. I delivered the placenta and that was all over, I would say within like 30 to 40 minutes. And then we hung out in that room for like 2 more hours so they could observe me and observe Lila. And they have you get up and try to go to the bathroom, which I didn't have to go because I hadn't been drinking water because I was so nauseous. But I have literally nothing but good things to say about my labor and delivery and the doctor and the nurses. It was all really, really, really good. My doctor, I've used this OB since I was like 18 or 20. She is a doctor who, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I had an ectopic pregnancy when I had an IUD. Jessie and I were not trying to have a baby. I had an IUD. I was in law school. This was the doctor that did the surgery to remove that, and she had to remove one of my fallopian tubes. She was the doctor when I miscarried, not the mean doctor, because if you watch my miscarriage story, there was a mean doctor who told me that I miscarried. Wasn't her. I had to see a different doctor that day, and she's now the doctor that delivered Lila, and she was so amazing. I'm not sure many people can say that their actual OB pushed with them for an hour. A lot of the times, the doctor comes in the room at the last second, literally just to grab and guide the baby out of the womb. But she pushed with me and helped me along and was so encouraging the entire time, because at one point in time I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to stop. And she was like, so encouraging. You can do it. You have to do it. You're almost there, not much longer. Like, she was so great. And I just feel like I had such a good experience. And another thing is, I feel like on the internet, at least on the side of TikTok I'm on, it's all very anti-medical intervention or anti-doctors or an anti all of that. But I was just worried, like, oh my God, I'm going to go to the hospital. They're just going to try to give me a C-section right away. I shouldn't get induced. I should wait, or I should do this, I should do that, because all I see on the internet is negative stories about doctors, nurses, hospitals, like you should give birth only in a birthing center or only do a home birth, or, no medical intervention, don't go to the hospital. And if that's what you want to do, that is great for you. The people who give birth without an epidural, to me, you are a queen, you're a god, you're amazing, because I don't know how the hell you do it. But I was worried because that's all I had seen. I had only seen negative stories about hospital births and inductions. That's it. So I'm so glad that I had a positive experience, and I hope this helps someone be a little less nervous if you're either being induced or you're just having a regular hospital birth, that it's very possible to have a hospital birth with, you know, good experiences and good staff. I don't know if it was just the hospital I'm at or whatever, that the staff was so amazing, but all of my nurses and all of the doctors were so great. And after, when we moved to the postpartum side, the nurses were just as amazing. They came in about, you know, every 3 hours or so to check on me and check on Lila. The only sort of negative experience I would say that I had was with breastfeeding. I was pumping before I went in to be induced to help induce labor naturally. My doctor okayed it, and I actually was producing a lot of milk and colostrum. Like I had like 20, 25 ounces already frozen. So my breasts were clearly producing milk. Like that wasn't an issue. But Lila was having a hard time latching, which is very common for a newborn. But I just felt like the lactation consultants, they were very nice, but it was just very overwhelming. Like I just had a baby, I'm laying in a bed, I'm like still disgusting to have someone grabbing your boobs and shoving your boob into your baby's mouth. And, you know, it was just a lot. The lactation consultants were actually better, but there was this one nurse who was like, wouldn't give it up. I was like, she can have formula. Like I'm not dead set on breastfeeding. I don't care either way as long as she's fed. So she can have formula, like, let's just give her some formula. She was like, no, like, if you're going to breastfeed, let's breastfeed. So she was like all over me, trying to get her to latch, breastfeed, blah, blah, blah. I was hand expressing the milk onto like a spoon, which is common, I guess, at the hospital. You'll probably end up having to do that if your baby doesn't latch. And it was all fine, but it was just overwhelming to have someone like on top of me grabbing my boobs. I'm sweating. That's the lovely thing about postpartum is you just like have these hot flashes. Oh my God, it's crazy. So the first day after I gave birth, so it was May 27th, we moved into the postpartum area. We just pretty much hung out all day. I tried to sleep, Jessie tried to sleep. And Lila was an angel in the hospital, like silent, didn't cry unless we were jostling her around trying to feed her. That day went by pretty fast. At night, you know, we went to bed and the nurse would come in every 3 hours to check her and then have me feed her, which at that point I was still hand expressing onto a spoon and, you know, feeding her like that. Then on the 28th, I was like, we are going home today. I have been in this hospital since Wednesday. I want to go home and sleep in my own bed. And I told the nurses that so they knew. Because you can stay for like 48 hours on a healthy, normal delivery. But I was like, no, I want to go home. I'm going home. So the OB came in and checked me and she's like, well, for me, you're cleared to go. The only thing we had to get was the pediatrician's approval. And the pediatrician didn't want us to leave until she could latch and feed. And he only said that because he thought I was like dead set on breastfeeding, which I wasn't. Like I didn't care either way. Not that I didn't care, but like if what we had to do to leave the hospital was formula feed, then we'll formula feed and we'll figure out breastfeeding at a later date, you know? So I think there was just miscommunication between the nurse and the doctor, and we ended up not getting discharged until like 6 o'clock, which in hindsight, then I wish we would have stayed, because when we came home that night, I was so overwhelmed. And I will do a whole other video on my postpartum journey because that was a lot. But eventually I told the nurse, I'm like, please bring me a pump, a hospital pump, and I will pump and we can feed her with a bottle so we can show the doctor that she can eat and she doesn't have any issues swallowing and all of that. And that'll be it. And she was like, no, you shouldn't pump, you know, just because you can hand express, like, doesn't mean anything will happen with the pump, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I was pumping at home. I have tons of milk at home. Please just bring me the pump. So she finally brought me the pump and I pumped like 2 ounces, which is way more than, you know, a newborn would eat. I was like, see, I told you. If someone had just listened to me in the morning, I could have like gone home in a reasonable hour. But she brought the pump, pumped, fed her twice, and then the pediatrician was like, okay, now you guys can go home. So we went home. And that's for another video. Our pediatrician is so amazing. We've seen him like 5 times, I would say, because Lila already had her 1-month appointment, but we saw him a few times at the beginning for like weight checks and all of that. And he's so amazing. And I just found this guy on like our local Facebook like mom group. I was like, oh, what's a good pediatrician in the area? A lot of people recommended him. We went to him. Amazing. Like, how did I get so lucky with these doctors? I don't know. I just feel like I've heard so many awful horror stories that that's what I was expecting it to be for me. I want to provide a positive birth story, and I hope that my story did that for you, and you feel like maybe your induction or your hospital delivery could be okay, because it can be okay. So ultimately, we were in the hospital from Wednesday night to Saturday evening. Lila's here, she's healthy, she is currently napping, which I'm watching on her monitor. And I'm very glad to be back on YouTube. I wanted to just take a maternity leave from here. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you're very up to date. You should follow me on Instagram because that's where all the content has been. I did have postpartum, well, first I had the baby blues, and then I had postpartum depression, really, really bad, which I don't want to talk about in this video because this is a positive video. But that's another reason I wasn't filming, because I was essentially crying 24/7 and it was a lot. But again, I'm not talking about that in this video. Thank you guys, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye. I'm sweating. Sweating. Not well.